I'll introduce myself. So I am Cody Thorup. I am the director of sales for Red Sign Team. My background, so you guys have a little bit of knowledge of what I did. So I spent 10 years in construction. I ran a construction company, so I can appreciate what your schedule looks like and what you do, Ivan. We specialize in concrete. We also just general jobs. So we kind of specialize in higher residential and then smaller commercial projects is what we did. So I worked all over the West, pouring for different companies. Savage is a worldwide company. It's a group that was started here by a couple brothers, and now they move commodities. So I did all kinds of work for them all over the West. I was pouring and doing projects in North Dakota for years when the oil boom was going on and all kinds of things. So along the way, I got my license. It's been 9 years ago. So I got it, and I was using my license originally to flip homes. So I was in construction, was using it to flip houses on the side, and that morphed into, over the years, I ended up starting another company in Maryland with a partner, wholesaling and flipping homes out of Baltimore, Maryland, and the surrounding areas as well. So I did that for a handful of years while I was still in construction. 2020, me and my dad ran the company that I was part of on the construction side, and then we decided to part ways the end of 2020. So 2021, I onboarded onto Red Sign. I knew Clay and Johnny. Johnny tried to recruit me when he was team leader, when he was Shoney's role. He tried to recruit me away from construction in my early 20s, and it didn't work, but I had kept in contact with them over the years. And so I had came back and got to know them, see where they were at in business, and started selling as an agent on Red Sign. And then in 2022, that summer, there was an opportunity to become the director of sales for the team. So now I kind of coach, train, still sell for Red Sign, and then a little bit of everything. So we've also got investing, obviously, is something I think we do as a team. It's been a passion of mine for forever. And so we actually started a real estate fund. I was in Georgia this last weekend, and we've bought 60 doors in Georgia in the last 13 months. So that's something that we've got going on as a team that's kind of exciting. And so investing is something that I think is awesome and a huge part of real estate. But you've also just got to sell homes and start closing deals as well to have money to be able to invest and to purchase rental properties. So Cam asked me to talk or teach about on the buy side how to get from A to Z and get somebody under contract, okay, and what that looks like. Cameron, essentially, I don't know if he's talked to you guys much. So Cameron really is kind of the core of Red Sign. He really built Red Sign more than a decade ago, was with Red Sign for years and years, and has become a MAPS coach, and then had the opportunity to become the productivity coach. And so we're excited about that. And so Cam has known me, been around me for years. And I think for me, that's probably one of the things that I think I'm probably one of the best at, is taking somebody that is a hand raiser on the buy side and then getting them under contract. Okay. So I wanted to go through and kind of explain my process and just really have an open forum. So I want you guys to ask questions. I want you guys to pick my brain, and I want this to kind of be back and forth with one another for the next little bit. Okay. So I want to walk through my process. Hey, how are you? Good. I want to walk through my process with initially having somebody like on the phone that's potentially interested in buying a home, what that looks like, next steps to get them to an appointment, what the appointment looks like, and then how you get them set up on listing alerts, my process with that, and then what my follow-up process looks like to get them to get out showing homes and then get them under contract. Okay. Before we jump into all of that, I wanted to just maybe ask, is there anything else that you guys have that would be worthwhile to chat through or talk about today? Is there any other topics? It doesn't have to be related to this specifically, but is there anything else that you guys potentially want to pick my brain on today? And I want to put that on the whiteboard and see if we've got time at the end. I want to tackle a couple of those as well. Kylie.
Okay, so I would love to know, when you have people just kind of reach out, maybe you put your listings on Facebook Marketplace or KSL, and you just have those people that are like, hey, is this still available? And maybe you get one response or two responses. How do you engage with those kind of people? What's your kind of follow-up process? halfway in, halfway out.
Okay. We'll put social media follow-up.
You don't have to email.
Yeah. Okay, what else? You guys got anything else you want to chat through?
Just like converting, like CMA appointment or something like that.
Okay.
Like, how do you get the next step? Instead of just showing them their house, like,
Okay, so listing appointment.
yeah.
Maybe how you prepare for those? Like, what's your process? And I've heard people have different processes for like putting together the CMAs.
Okay. Okay, anything else?
I'm working with my first buyer, so that's
Yay.
exactly why I'm here.
Yes. Okay, good,
Yeah.
good. Good, this will be good. Lucas, how are you? Good. Go, you do this. Okay, well, that's exciting. And you should have lots of questions for this.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay,
I've been through the process, so I've bought and sold my own homes over the years, so I've done the process several times, but I've never been an agent.
okay, good. So let's start with, I'll tell you a little bit of background for, so us as a team, we have an inside sales department. So I've got a couple people that their whole jobs are to work inbound and outbound leads as they come in. Okay. So I want to first start with, has anyone heard of this acronym LTP Mama? Okay. Let this become your best friend when it comes to qualifying leads and people that are potentially hand raisers. Okay. So I want to walk through what this is. This is what my inside sales team and us as agents live by when it comes to how do I like get to the next step when I have somebody that's potentially interested in listing or buy side. So these are applicable to both. Okay. So this would be a situation where, let's say you're making your phone calls, you've got somebody on the phone and they're like, yeah, and you ask, maybe you ask them, you know, hey, do you have any real estate goals this year? And they're like, yeah, actually, you know, we're maybe considering making a move. And you're like, okay, now what do I do? Like, what questions should I ask? Where do I go from here? And so this acronym is a great way to have kind of a roadmap to walking through or guiding you through that conversation. Okay. So first one would be location. Okay. So Lucas, if you were like, man, I'm maybe I'll just role play with you. Okay. We'll go through this. Does that work? Okay. Lucas, you have any real estate goals this year?
Yeah, I want to buy a property.
Cool. Okay. Well, that's exciting. Congratulations. Is it okay if I ask you just a couple questions? Okay. Lucas, location wise, if you were to make a move this year, what's the ideal location?
Anywhere between Provo to Pleasant Grove.
Okay, so Provo to Pleasant Grove. Awesome. Okay, and this is probably where I'd stop too. In a sales environment, it's one thing to like understand the logic behind your clients, what they're thinking. It's another thing to understand the emotion. Okay, so logic makes people think, emotion makes people act. Okay, so logic makes them think, but emotion is what's going to get them to move in the sales funnel. Okay, that's what's going to make them react and get them to really move forward when you're working with them. Okay, so I could ask a very top level question of what is the ideal location? And they say Provo to Pleasant Grove. Is that what you said? Which is great. And so that gives me some guidance. And that a lot of times is the first thing. So we take that info and we're like, okay, great. Pleasant Grove to Provo. Now I've got my first part of my listing alert that I can set up. But I would ask that you go a little bit deeper with that and ask another question. Lucas, what's most important about being in between Provo and Pleasant Grove?
It's just really close to my job.
Okay, awesome. Where do you work?
I work in Lisbon.
Okay. And so it sounds like from what you're saying is that it's important to be a certain amount of time away from where you work. Okay. So let's just say he lives smack dab in between those two locations. So it sounds like it's important for you to be about 10-minute drive from your work. Okay. If there was something that I found that maybe was just outside of that, maybe it was 15 to 20 minutes away from your job, would you be open to looking at it?
Yeah, that works.
Okay, cool. So now I've dug a little bit deeper. I know why really emotionally he's tied to, he just doesn't want to have a long drive to work. Okay. So now I've got location, timeline. How soon, if money wasn't a problem, if everything lined up, when's your ideal time to make a move, Lucas?
I think between now and 3 months because my lease ends in the next month.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so your lease ends. So we've got to get moving then, because this is coming up quick. Okay, good. Price point. Do you have a price in mind? I would also with this ask, for most people, it really comes down to mortgage. It's the monthly payment. You know, that's really what they're focused on. Especially when you're working with first-time home buyers, they don't really correlate an exact price to how that affects them on a monthly basis. So when you're asking this price question, for me, it's usually twofold. Do you have a price in mind, or do you have a monthly payment that you would like to stay within? What does that look like?
So anything like 2,000 or less a month.
Okay, so we want to be around $2,000. Okay. This is another good question too. So if you found the perfect property that fits everything you need and want, and it was priced at just a little bit more than where you were pre-approved, or maybe a little bit more where you wanted to spend, you know, would you be open to looking at that?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's another good thing to ask, is you're trying to find out what's like really the top end of where they want to be. Okay. So if he says 2,000, a good question could be, if I found a home and let's say the monthly payment was $2,200 a month, how open would you be to taking a look at that home?
Yeah. 22,000 the max, nothing more after that.
Okay, so it can't be more than $2,200 a month. Okay, so I've really found like where his absolute pain point is on a monthly basis. Agency, this is always a good one too, because you don't want to be working, especially with this whole settlement that's going on. So there's a couple of good questions asked here. Have you ever toured any homes yet? Have you toured any homes yet?
No, I haven't.
Okay, have you written any offers on any other homes right now? No. Okay, that's usually a workaround to not ask, you know, are you working with another agent? If they've toured some homes, if they've written some offers, potentially, most likely, they probably are working with another agent. Okay, so that's a good way, again, to qualify them, that they're not working with an agent, they're not actively viewing homes, they're not actively writing offers. Okay, so that's another good question. Mortgage, okay, will you be paying cash or will you be financing this?
I'll be financing.
Okay, have you talked with the lender yet?
No.
Okay, great. That's usually one of the first steps, is for us to get you connected with the lender and getting going to see where your pre-approval is at. Okay. And then this last part of LTP Mama is the appointment. So if you get through all of these different things, you've now got kind of a framework of what they're looking for, their timeline, that they're not working with anybody. They do need to talk to a lender. And then the last part of this is to set the appointment, to get actually in front of them. Okay. Lucas, from the sound of our conversation, it sounds like it would be really helpful for you to come into my office, to sit down and to go through the details and really get started on purchasing this home. Do you have some time later this week on Friday or Monday that we could meet in person? Is morning or afternoon's best for you?
This week's kind of busy, but Monday we'll shoot break in the afternoon.
Afternoon, great. Looks like my calendar's, I've got 2 p.m. available. Does that work for you?
Yeah, that works.
Okay, great. Can you just text me over, or can I get your email address? I'll send you a calendar invite with my office address, and I look forward to seeing you on Tuesday or Monday. Okay, great. I would check in probably Sunday, and then I would follow up and make sure I confirm the appointment either Sunday night or Monday morning, and just say, hey, are we still good for our appointment at 2 o'clock today? Okay. So we've gone through LTP Mama. That for me is really the first step with everything. Okay. We've set the appointment, and then I've got a process that I'm following up to make sure I confirm the appointment, that I'm not just hoping they're going to show up on Monday afternoon. Okay. Next thing is the consultation. Okay. How many of you guys have like a buyer consultation packet? You guys have anything like that? Okay. A few of you. Okay. Okay. I know there's resources within Command. I know the office has got resources. That is a helpful thing to have. A lot of people are visual learners. Okay. A lot of people are visual learners. The reason why visually people love, I think, real estate too, is that a good example of that for us is like anytime we have land for sale, if we put a to be built up, we get way more leads on a to be built than we will just the raw land, because people like to see things. Okay. So during the consultation, this is where, as you go through this, I would have pen and paper in front of you. I would be writing something down so that you can then take the initial information and you can dive into this deeper. Okay. So when I sit down for the consultation, I'm going to get to know them a little bit, catch up. How's life? If you know them and they're in your SOI, spend the time to build some rapport in the beginning and then dive into kind of how do you buy a home? And it's different for a first-time home buyer compared to somebody that's purchased a home prior. In this example, let's just say Lucas is a first-time home buyer. His lease is up, okay? And so in the consultation, I'm going to take our conversation and I'm going to dig into a little bit deeper, okay? So for example, location. Lucas, you told me that Pleasant Grove to Provo was the ideal location. We also talked about, you mentioned that you would still be open to some homes that were maybe a little bit farther away. If I found you something that, let's say, was in the edge of Saratoga, it still puts you about in that 15, 20-minute drive, would you be open to looking at homes there?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. One of the things I think too that's important to know, Lucas, about location is what's going on around those areas. Okay, from Provo to Pleasant Grove, there is some really cool developments, and there's some things going on, and so I want you to be aware of some of those things. For instance, in Lehigh, Texas, Instruments announced last fall they're spending $7 billion on their new facility. So they've got the state's largest single investment into an area that's ever happened. So that's important to know. Just over the mountain, over the point in Draper, they've got the Point that's been announced. Obviously, we're aware that the prison's been torn down. So that's something that's hopefully helpful to understand and know that's coming. In between Provo and Pleasant Grove in Vineyard, have you heard of Utah City?
No, I haven't.
Okay, Utah City is one of the newest developments. They're actually underway on construction. They've broken ground right now. That is a walkable development. It'll be 10 years in the making, but that is something that a lot of people are excited about. Their vision for Utah City is to be the downtown for Utah County. And so that is a very popular area and could be worth us entertaining or looking at options near that location because of the growth that's going on. Okay. When we look towards Saratoga, we've got Primary Children's Hospital that has opened, and so that's exciting. And there's a lot of growth down Redwood Road in Saratoga as Eagle Mountain and Saratoga continue to grow. Okay. So as we look at location, just be mindful of a few of these things. Location matters when we buy real estate. Okay. Timeline. You mentioned we've got to be in the next couple months. Okay. So tell me exactly, when does your lease end and when do you have to be out?
My lease ends in September.
Okay. September. Can I ask, have you found out, can you go month to month on your lease? Do you know if that's possible?
I haven't talked to the landlord yet, but I'm close friends with him, so I don't think he's fine.
Okay. I would encourage you to ask him if that's possible. I found with clients that sometimes during this process, once we get into lending and we start the home search, sometimes it takes a little bit longer than we anticipate. So it's helpful for us to know now if that's an option, or if we really truly have a dead stop where you have to be into a home at a certain date. That's helpful for me to know. Okay. Can you find out for me?
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay, great. That's if you're dealing with people that rent, that's a great question to ask. So you understand when is your deadline and when do you have to have them out of that place and into a new home. Okay. So I understand timeline. Price, you mentioned, we talked a little bit about that. Have you started looking at homes at all? Do you have an idea for price point or certain property? Are you looking for a townhome, condo, single family? What does that look like?
I'm not sure about a price range. I'm not really familiar with that side of it, but anything I just want to get in a home. It can be condo to a single family home.
Okay. Okay. Okay, so you're pretty open to it. Is there anything specific that you're wanting? Is there a certain amount of bedrooms that you need, bathrooms, garage? Like what's most important to you in purchasing a home?
I want minimum at least two beds and one bath.
Okay, so we've got to have 2 beds, 1 bath. Outside of that, you're pretty open, condo to single family. Okay, cool. Okay, that gives us a lot of options to look at. This is probably one I didn't touch base, which I should have. Motivation. What's your reason for wanting to buy a home right now, Lucas?
I know the benefits of it in the future. Instead of renting out, I'm not renting anything in the long run.
Cool. So you understand kind of the wealth play with owning real estate. Okay, that's awesome. When looking at properties, have you ever considered house hacking, renting rooms, anything like that?
Somewhat. That's kind of why I want 2 bedrooms, so I can at least use one of the bedrooms as a house hacking situation.
Okay, cool. Because that's something we could chat through too. That's an awesome way to get in early on into real estate. Sometimes people look at renting basements, potentially renting some rooms out. So that's awesome. We've talked through, we'll get into agency mortgage at that point, really talking about lending. Okay. Ideally, before you're going out showing homes, you never want to go do that before you have them talking to a lender. Okay. One of the worst things that happens is you get out or someone says, hey, I'm really like this house. Can you go show it to me? And so you're like, yeah, let's go see it. You go show them the house. They love it. They've not met with a lender. And then they find out that they can't afford that house. It's too expensive. Okay. And so that's very difficult after you've met with them too. So don't take people out showing homes unless you have talked to a lender and they know what can they actually be approved for. Okay. Because the worst thing for them is to get their hopes up. And then they're like, it's really hard to bring them back down to earth with expectations because they were planning for single family and they ended up with a condo. And that's what they could be approved for. Okay? It's easier to set expectations at the beginning. Mortgage with the lending side, Lucas, what I'll do is I'll get connected with my preferred lender, Jake Butler, over here at Aries. He's awesome. I'll put us in a group text and we can get going on getting the application filled out. Once we have that done, we can kind of review numbers and that will help us give us a starting point on kind of where our purchase price can be. Okay. From there, just really getting into making sure that you're aware of not every client is going to be as easy, as simple as Lucas is in this situation. Okay. 2-bed, 1-bath. Outside of that, really, I don't care. You want to find out what are some of their non-negotiables? What are the things they have to have if they're going to make a move? Okay. Especially for move-up buyers that currently own a home that are wanting to make the next step. Like you have to find out, what do you love about your current home? Okay. If you could take that with you to your next, what would you take? What would you absolutely not want to have in your next home that you haven't loved about your current home? You know, is it location? Is it you need a bigger yard? Like really dig into what's the things that are going to matter the most to them. So when you set up your listing alert, you're sending them properties and looking at things that matter most to them in your understanding. The other process to that I love asking or letting people know is once we get our pre-approval, let's go out and start looking at some homes. So the next step for me in the consultation is once we get the application filled out, that can happen in a couple of days if you're sending documents over to Jake and we get going. After that, when is our next available time that we can get out and look at some homes? When are you available? Okay, so in the consultation, don't leave that empty. You know, ask them, how fast do you think you can get the application done? How much time do you think you're going to need to do that? Find that out. I think I can probably get it in a couple of days. I'll get my W-2 tax returns over there so we can find out. Great. So if it's Thursday today, couple days, maybe we're into Monday, Tuesday. When next week would you be available to go out and look at some homes? Okay, set the next appointment with them so you have something in your calendar and they're expecting that now there's a couple things that both people need to do. They've got to fill out the application, get going there. You need to start on the search for finding them some properties to look at, okay, and then getting them over to you. Okay, so make sure you always set that next appointment. That also goes for if you go out, let's say it's a Saturday, you show a client 2 or 3 homes. Okay, great. One of the things that a lot of agents do is they'll go show the homes, they'll end, say, hey, what did you like about it? Do you want to write an offer? Nah, I wasn't really feeling any of these. You know, I didn't really love any of the homes that we saw today. Okay, great. Well, I'll just send you some homes and we'll see if we can get back out and look at some houses and you go on your way. Don't do that. Ask them, hey, well, it sounds like I need to send you over a couple options. Let's really find out, what did you not like about the homes we saw today? What are you wanting in the home? What are you, really get to know or get to see what's going on in their mind. From that, then take that back and adjust your search. So you're starting to really figure out what is the perfect home that they're looking for. But in that moment, then ask, okay, that's helpful for me to understand when is a good time for us to set up and see some homes again. Okay. Because that's the lull point in the follow-up. This is the part where I think a lot of agents kind of struggle with getting buyers under contract, is they struggle in the follow-up and what's like next.
At what point are you bringing up PPA?
Yeah, we'll get into that in the consultation. Okay. In the consultation, I'll go through kind of nuts and bolts, start to finish, through my packet. I'll talk to them about the process. We'll get really clear on what they're looking for, really clear on lending. Then at the very end, because by then I should have been telling them and explaining to them all of the things that I'm doing and my value along the way. Okay. At the end, there's 2 things that I always end with a with a buyer consult or a listing consultation is I'll say, look, there's two last things that I want to cover. Okay. One is the agreement and two is my promise. Okay. This agreement, the buyer broker agreement is a document that states what I'm going to be doing for you, and it's your commitment to work with me. Okay. So let's go through this. I would, as a team, we spent about an hour and a half yesterday going through both agreements. I would recommend the history has been, the agreement's been a very buyer broker agreement. It's been something that a lot of people don't get signed until we're submitting offers. It's something that you don't get signed until later on. With the current environment in our industry, I recommend that you bring it up. The buyer broker agreement should be something that allows people to understand their commitment to work with you and your commitment to work with them. Okay. It also helps you decide who is actually serious and motivated to make a purchase right now. Okay. So understanding that agreement, knowing where in section 2 that the commission is spelled out. Hey, in section 2, here's where the commission is spelled out. Okay. This is the amount of money that we are agreeing to that I would get paid in this transaction. Okay. Section 4 describes what the buyer's commitment is and what they should be doing in the transaction. Okay. Section 5 is what you guys should be doing. The thing that it doesn't explain very well is all the things that an agent does in a transaction. Okay. So it's helpful for you guys to really understand, what are you going to be doing for your buyer? And do they understand that? Are they aware of it? And do they know those things in the very beginning? Okay. So they should know that there is a wealth consultation that happens in the very beginning. We're having that right now. Okay. I'm going to be helping with searching for homes for you. I'm going to be searching off market, on market homes. I'm going to be running market analysis. If we're going to write an offer, I want you to be aware of, is the home worth what we potentially are offering for the house? What are the comps around that? Okay. So I'm going to provide you data as we're considering putting an offer into that home. Okay. I'm going to be submitting offers, writing offers, and negotiating on your behalf. There's over 30 things that can be negotiated in a normal real estate contract. Okay. And so my value is helping to negotiate those items and make sure you get the best deal possible. And when using my preferred lender, that's also a benefit to using me, is that I have a great lender who has great rates and low costs. Okay. And that's something that you gain access to by working with me. Some of the other things that you're going to gain access to is myself and my brokerage. We have a vendor list that has awesome vendors that are vetted. So in the event that we go see a home, we get it under contract and there's a few things that need to be repaired. Not only can I provide vendor support and connections to help get those things taken care of, if needed on the seller side, I can also give some recommendations so that we can get some prices, and that is a smooth negotiations for both sides. Okay. I also will help in the event of a low appraisal. Okay. That can be an issue that arises where our offer and the appraisal is not in line for price. And so I'm going to need to go back to the seller and negotiate either a price reduction, or we're going to need to come back to the table and figure that out. Okay. Again, that's one of the values that I have. And then obviously getting things prepared with my preferred title company, getting things done correctly and submitted. There's also some things that clients usually don't know or aren't aware of. So, and some risk that's involved in a real estate transaction. Here's an example. As a team, we have a sliding scale for commissions. If I have a buyer and a seller that already both know that they want to do a deal together, we will charge a 1% flat fee to connect both of them and handle the transaction. Okay. One of my agents presented this to a seller that was going to list with him. He already had the buyer. Seller was like, $5,000 is too much money. I don't think it's worth that. We're just going to do it on our own. I'm selling to a family. I think we're completely fine. Okay. So Rich was like, okay, let me know if I can help with anything. And they went about putting the deal together. A couple weeks later, Rich gets a call from this seller. Seller says, Rich, I can't believe, I don't even know where to start. He says, in the midst of this transaction, we were in the process of getting things ready with title. And I got an email with wire instructions to send $42,000 to the title company. Somehow I got fraudulent wire instructions and I sent $42,000 to somewhere besides the title company. And I called the FBI, and one of the first questions they asked me was, did I use a realtor? Did I have a realtor involved? And I had to say no. and I'm not really sure what to do. I don't know where I go from here, but essentially they're telling me that they can't do anything, and this is a common occurrence, and I'm out $42,000. Okay. So helping people understand that real estate transactions, contracts, and getting things done correctly and the risk that's involved, sometimes people don't understand what that means. And so telling stories along the way, the longer you guys are in real estate, you'll have some of these experiences. And so amongst yourselves, this is also, you guys have a good group to be able to tell one another the pain points, the struggles that sometimes happen in real estate. That's a good story to help people understand. One of my values is that I will guide you through that process at closing. You know, there is a process to make sure that we're sending money to the correct place when it comes to closing. Okay, again, that's one of the values. The other thing too is that with my value is that this relationship doesn't end at the time that we close the house. This vendor list that I told you about, if you want to do something on your home, I've got a great list that I can recommend. I can send you some recommendations for what that looks like. Okay, so this is a partnership that doesn't end at the closing table. Okay, and so I'm going to get really clear on the value. I'm going to help them understand. Right now in our environment, I think there's 3 scenarios that can happen or play out with a buyer right now. And I think for you guys, they need to understand that in the very beginning of the transaction. With what's going on, we have a seller that called, one of my agents went on a listing appointment yesterday, and the seller said, look, I don't want to offer a buyer broker compensation. I'm not offering a BAC or BBC. They're not open to it. He said, I will consider it, but I don't want to advertise it. I want to negotiate it on the sell of my house. Okay. This is going to be a common thing that you guys are going to start running into. You may look at listings before the middle of July, whenever this really shakes out and MLS takes the advertising off. You may go look at homes in the next couple weeks or month where you may call the seller and say, it may only say $1 on the BBC at the bottom. And you may think, man, that's weird. And you may call the listing agent and say, hey, I noticed that there's no compensation on the listing. And they may say, well, my seller doesn't really want to offer it given the current environment that's going on in real estate. And so more than happy to present an offer and include it, but we're not offering one out the gates. Okay. So in the beginning of your consultation, when you're signing the buyer broker agreement, does that buyer understand the couple scenarios that could play out? Like I said, I think there's 3. 1, the seller is going to provide compensation. 95% of the time, historically, sellers have always offered compensation when it comes to selling and getting their home sold. Okay. That's the most common scenario. It's going to be the one that continues to play out the most. Okay. The second scenario is that the seller is offering a reduced compensation that we will need to talk about to make up the difference, because today we're agreeing to 3% compensation for my services that we talked about. Okay. In the event that it's offering reduced, what does that look like? It may look like in our offer, I'm going to negotiate. It may look like a little bit higher purchase price. It may look like a little bit higher closing costs for you to make up that difference. Okay. But I will let you know if that happens when we're ready to submit an offer on a home. Okay. The third scenario is the seller is not offering any compensation. And so that will again need to be negotiated in our offer, and maybe a slightly higher purchase price, maybe some higher closing costs, maybe a combination of both. Okay. But I want you to be aware of right now, those are some of the situations that we may run into as we're submitting our offer. Again, we're committing and agreeing to 3% compensation today for my services if we sign this. And I will walk you through and guide you through this process and help you understand the scenario that we may be in when we submit offers. But again, don't worry, don't stress. 95% of homes offer compensation. And that most of the time historically is how I will be compensated in this transaction. Okay. You guys then, if they're offering 2.5 and the agreement's 3, you then get to decide whether you go back and get the 0.5%, whether that's negotiated in your offer, you know, or whether you accept the 2.5% compensation that's being offered. That's up to you. Okay. But I think in today's market, I would not have a consultation without bringing up the agreement. I also would not help them understand what your list of services and value is and the scenarios that could play out in the event that they sign that and you go start looking at homes. Okay. It will be a tough conversation if you don't have that and you go show them a home, they fall in love with it, and you go to call the listing agent. The listing agent says, hey, we're not offering any compensation. Let's say it's August. You take someone out to fall in love with the house. You didn't tell them about the couple scenarios that could play out. They love the home. They're so excited to write the offer. And then they find out there's no compensation and that's going to cost them potentially 3% more. And now you have to have a very tough conversation about what that looks like on that particular home. Okay. It's a lot easier to have that conversation if you explain it and you set expectations out the gates on what's going on in our market. Okay.
So you said that the buyer, the one listing agent just said, hey, we're not gonna offer a BBC, we're open to negotiate with them. So when they did their ERS and they got that listing, you think they only put 3 in?
Yeah, my agent on my team only put 3 on the list side.
Okay, so it's your agent that
Yep.
has the listing.
Yep.
Okay, so they just put
It's 3
3.
for the
Usually
listing.
6, and then 3
Yep.
on the list.
Yep, just says 3% on the top section, and there's nothing in the buyer section right now in the
So
ERS.
so the sellers do realize like, hey, we need to offer something for the buyer agent, they just have to do an addendum to the.
No, it's just gonna be negotiated in their offer. So at that point, the buyer's agent will just need to negotiate it. They'll need to
If
put
they don't
together
Patch it, then they might not get paid, then they won't get paid.
potential, yeah, because the seller's not offering. There is no compensation. It will probably say, we had talked about what do we put, because right now we still have to put something in the BBC in the bottom. It'll probably say $1. And then the agent remarks, it will say something like seller is not currently offering buyer's agent compensation, but is open to negotiating. Please include with an offer, something along those lines.
Say that house is $500,000, a buyer comes, and they say, we're offering 510 and we want the 10,000 to go towards
Commission potentially.
commission for the
Yep.
buyer.
This is where if you're not very strict in the beginning, this is where I think this is a whole nother long conversation about agreements and what's going to change come July. But I think that's why we are in it as a team. I'm trying to prepare all my agents to really lean in now and try to really just expect the market and live the market like it's going to be in July instead of waiting until July and then trying to change. Because some buyers you're going to meet with today may not be ready until this fall. And so that may be it's great to set expectations now on what's going on in the market. Okay. Any other questions with that?
How does that affect the price?
That's the other tricky thing. So part of your negotiations, this is where it gets tricky. Let's say you try to include it in your offer and the seller is like, this is where the market is going to dictate how difficult this is going to be. This is why I would advise try to be on the list side as much as you possibly can. In a buyer's market, when homes are sitting, sellers are going to want to offer compensation. Right now, in the current market we're in, anything kind of sub 500, 550 is still very active. Things are not sitting on the market very long. We're getting multiple offers. 2 weekends ago, I had a home in West Jordan. It was 485. There was 10 offers. It went for 552, 60,000 over list. You had to have a minimum of 40 grand over appraisal. So like that environment, all of a sudden things change and a seller says, well, I'm not offering compensation and we're multiple offers. What's one of the things that may go for some agents that don't know their value? Well, they're going to say, my client loves it, so I'm willing to take 1% compensation. I'm willing to only include a little bit of compensation in our agreement, in our offer, because I want my client to get the house. And so to your point, if we say home's 500, I include 10 or 15 grand on top of the purchase price to try to wrap it into my client's loan for compensation. Appraisal comes in at 500, you're in a predicament. For you to get paid, your client has to come out of pocket now. So have you had that conversation in the very beginning? Are they aware of the potential for that? Okay. So that's, again, a lot easier conversation to have if expectations are set up front. That in the event that this happens, we're going to have a conversation. And there's a couple options that we have. Okay. Could be higher closing costs. Could be a little bit higher purchase price. But we'll chat through that. Okay. So they're aware that this could be an option that could happen during that scenario. Okay. That's again why I think we've really got to be confident on what your value is, what's that worth, and your client knowing how they're going to pay for that. It could honestly come, and this is just going down the rabbit hole, but this could honestly come down to a time where you have potentially buyers paying for compensation over a period of time because they couldn't get it taken care of during the transaction. There could be very unique things that come out of this, but the most important thing is right now, things should be as normal moving forward until the middle of July. Okay. But just prep buyers when you meet with them today that could be an option. Okay. Any other questions with that? The second thing that I bring up, I told you there's two things that I always end on. One, the agreement. I bring it up. I always present the agreement, even on, let's say, a listing that's not going to be ready for 6 months. You know, they're not going to be ready to sign the listing agreement today. I'm still going through it with them. I'm still helping them understand what it is. I'm still letting them know the timeline that when I would send that to them to get signed so that we can get going. Okay. Buy side, I would always push buyers to sign the agreement, because there is times where you're going to be following up and working with a buyer for 12, 18 months potentially, because they've got low credit score. They're in the middle of changing jobs. They've got to be at the job a little bit longer. But along the way, you have to realize that just because you're not out showing houses doesn't mean you're not working. Okay. The agreement is your golden ticket to get paid. Okay. So do not shy away from bringing it up, sliding it across the table, explaining it, and then saying, is there any questions? Can we get this signed and move forward? That's also your time to bring out objections. A lot of times people will be like, I don't know. I'm not quite ready. Don't shy away from diving into that. Okay. Stop and be willing to have a little bit of an uncomfortable conversation sometimes. Hey, I can appreciate that. Tell me more about what's making or causing you to be hesitant on signing this. Why are you hesitant? You know, what has you worried about signing this? Have they had a bad experience with an agent in the past? Yeah, I've had that sometimes, where they've had a terrible experience with an agent. They signed an agreement. They didn't really know what they were signing. That agent held it over their head, you know, and so they're really hesitant on signing the agreement because they've had a terrible experience. But that's your opportunity to objection handle and like get out what is causing them to not move forward in the process. Okay, so don't shy away from agreements. That should be something that you're really confident in. Share it with them. Try to get it signed. If they're not going to sign it, again, that's how you know if they're motivated and ready to work with you and get after it. Or there's somebody that you just need to put them on listing alerts, check in with them, put them on your quarterly calls, and just follow up, but they're not quite ready if they're not going to sign the agreement. Okay, there's something else that you need to dig into to find out. Okay. The second thing that I always cover is, I told you it's the promise. So there is what they call the promise script. Mike Hicks is the agent up in Idaho. He has built a business where I think his best year, he did almost, I want to say I think it was in the 200s. It was him and two assistants. He did over 200 units by himself. His whole business was based off of referrals. Okay. He is like the godfather of the promise script. Essentially, the promise script is saying, hey, last thing, my promise in this, my promise is to provide a level of service that's so good. It's 5 stars, if you will. Okay. You have such a good experience. That's my promise in this transaction. Okay. How does that sound? Sounds great. Along the way, we deal with people. This is real estate. So there's going to be some bumps in the road. Okay. But my promise is to work through that with you and again, provide a 5-star experience. Okay. How does that sound, Lucas? Great. Okay. I have one thing in return to ask. Is that okay? Okay. Lucas, my ask is that if I can provide this five-star service, if we go through this process and I provide this service and you're super excited and we're at the closing table, along the way, what I'm asking is, will you send me somebody from now until the time we're closing on this home that's either looking to buy, sell, or has real estate questions? Can you do that for me? Okay. What I want you to know is exactly what I'm looking for. Not only do I know that you're going to be talking to people and sharing how excited you are about looking at homes, but what I'm asking is that you will share their name, phone number, or email with me so I have 100% chance to connect with them. Can you do that for me? So I'm teaching them like how to give the referral. The last part of it is, Lucas, if we get to the closing table and you're super stoked, I'm excited, we're closing on this new house, but I don't have a name and a phone number, I'm going to feel like I didn't provide this 5-star service. And we're going to have a tough conversation because I'm going to want to know what I didn't do to provide that level of service for you. Is that okay? Can we have that conversation? Okay, awesome. I'm super excited to get going on this. I'm excited. Like I said, you're gonna talk to family and friends, and I love to help them. That's the lifeline of my business. Okay, so those are the 2 things I end on: getting the agreement signed, getting the promise script, and along the way, that's your way to pull out referrals. That's your way to build your database. When I'm out showing houses, I'll bring up, hey, have you talked to anybody about real estate? Is there somebody that I should be talking to? Hey, I've got my brokerage has this awesome summer event. I'd love to send them some free tickets. You know, who do you know that I should be talking to? Who do you know that I should also be helping? Okay. And I have that conversation at the title company. If we're at closing, we're walking out the door and I'm like, man, I'm so excited for you guys. I'll touch base with keys. Last thing, man, you didn't send me anybody. You know, that's my way to have a conversation with them about, can we follow up? Can I keep checking in with you about this name and number so I can help somebody else? Okay. And I help them understand that I want to help your friends and family in real estate. Okay. So that's a great way to tee that up. Okay. The other thing that I want to touch base on is process to setting somebody up on a search. Okay. So this is probably the second part. We've had the consultation. We've talked through all of these. I know they're non-negotiables. I know what they're looking for. I connected them with my lender. Okay. We know our pre-approval now. And so now we've got to set up our search. Okay. I'm probably a little bit unique in the way I do this. And I teach my agents to do the same thing, but I think there's some tricks to do it. The easiest thing to do is take exactly what they tell you and put it into a search. Okay, that's the easy thing to do. Let me pull up and I'll walk you through how I would set up. Okay. So I know you guys have some options in Command to set up listing alerts. We work out of a different system, but I still use the MLS for a majority of my searches. If I was to pull up, I'll give you an example. If I was to pull up my email right now, you'll see at 8 a.m. in the morning, I have my listing alerts set up to drop to my email. Okay. So my time, our team jumps on a call at 8:30, 8 to 8:30. My time is time blocked to look at listing alerts for my buyers. Okay. So the way that I set this up is I usually set up 2 searches. Okay. So I'll come in here, residential quick search. Let's say list price is 350 to 450. Let's say we're going to go, let's say it's townhomes. And then I'll put location in. So that could be 2 things, either cities or I'll come in here and draw a map. Okay. To Lucas's point, he shared that he wants to be between Provo and Pleasant Grove. So I may come in here and draw a map around that. Because that's what he wanted. Okay. So there's a trick. There's no properties even pulling up. There's a trick to this. I'm going to set up 2 searches. One is going to be pretty much exactly what the client told me. Okay. Pleasant Grove to Provo, 2-bed, 1-bath, looking for a condo, single family is what Lucas shared. I'm going to share almost exactly to the T what they shared or they wanted. Okay. That's what they're going to be getting every single day. Okay. I'm going to set them up on a search. The second search that I set up is one that is not sent to the client. It's only sent to me. Okay. The reason for that is I'm going to take what they told me. And then I already asked Lucas, hey, if I found you something that let's say was maybe in Saratoga, would you be open to it? Yeah, sure. I'd be open to it. Okay. If I found you something that was maybe just a little bit farther of a drive, how open? Yeah, I'd be open to it. So I'm going to now take my search and I'm going to go, let's say Payson to Draper over to Saratoga. They're getting a certain number of houses. I'm getting a bigger portion of homes sent to me every day. The reason for that, the reasoning behind it for myself is that when I pull up in the morning, I already know that there's going to be homes that I'm looking at that they don't have, that I didn't send them. And so this is my way to follow up and for them to see that I'm actually looking at homes actively every day. And I'm looking at homes that I'm not even sending them. Hey, I saw this home that was in Saratoga that I thought could be exactly what we chatted about. I know it may be a little bit farther than you wanted originally, but I think it checks a lot of the boxes. Okay. This is the way for us to follow up with something that is valuable. You may have clients that their search is so specific, it's really hard to find something in a certain area or price point. Okay. So let's say our pre-approval is at 300. I don't max my search out at 300. I'm probably going to max my search out at 325 to maybe 340. The reason for that is because if I have a home that let's say started at 340, sat on the market, gets down to 320, If I called Jake and said, Jake, I got a house they really like, I think it could be a fit, it's 320. What interest rate would I have to be able to get them to be pre-approved? How much concessions would I have to have? Okay. There isn't sometimes enough concessions from a seller that would allow your client to be able to get a little bit higher pre-approval. Okay. So I also don't want to just cap my search at exactly what their pre-approval is. You want to slightly be 5 to 10% more than that, because there's potential for you to still make a deal happen there. Okay. Does everyone know how to set up a search and have it drop at a certain time of day when you set those up? Does everyone know how to do that? No? Okay. Let's walk through this. It's going to tell me that there's no listing, so I'm going to have to go adjust it. So let's go. Okay, so we've got some houses. So once I have kind of the search dialed in, okay, I've got this list of houses. One of the first things that I'll do too when I have a pre-approval and a buyer is I'll dial in their search. I'll pull this up, and then I will mass text them over a whole list of homes in preparation for our first meeting, because we already agreed that we're going to go out on Saturday and look at homes. Okay, so I went back to the office. I know they're pre-approved for up to 450. I'm going to pull up a search, and then I'm going to start texting over links to these houses, okay, in a group text. People are a lot more likely to look at text messages than they are their emails, okay? So I'm going to start copying and pasting over some of the houses that I think we should potentially look at on Saturday, okay? But once I send a bunch of these first homes over, I'm going to go over here and I'm going to say create listing alert, okay? So on this listing alert name, if I'm creating it for the client, let's say this is the Smith family, okay? You have to add the client in here, okay? So you have to give them an invitation. So I'm going to come on here. Let's put John Smith. You're going to put their email address in, and then you're going to send the connection invite. For them to start receiving emails, they have to click and accept the invitation. Okay, so you have to let them know about that. Hey, when I get back, I'm going to send you some listing alerts. You're going to have to accept the invitation for me to start sending those to you. Okay, so make them aware, set those expectations. Once they're in here, you can then add the person. So you'd select your client, add them in here, and it gives you a couple options, okay? So usually with clients in today's environment, COVID market was crazy. You had to have express alerts. It had to be immediately. As soon as the house hit the market, you had to be on top of it because they were gone in 6 hours, okay? Today, if you just have daily alerts going to a client, that usually is plenty. If you have somebody that's maybe 6 months out, maybe you set them up on weekly alerts, okay? But if we're actively going to look, me and Lucas, I'd put daily alerts. I'd set it for 6 months here, and then I'd just select a time of day, okay? When I think about this, you have to think about, when do you guys usually look at your phones?
All the time.
When is the average consumer either scrolling, has a minute to look at their phone, to pull up emails? What's that? Okay, so either in the morning, lunchtime, right before bed. So I would be strategic about when you send those listing alerts out. You know, if you send them out right at 9, 10 o'clock when they're middle of their workday, the chances that email is going to get pushed down to the bottom, and maybe it's not something they're going to see as quick. If it's sent to them first thing in the morning at 7 a.m., there's probably a higher likelihood they're going to look at it. If you send it at, let's say, 7 or 8 p.m. at night after the workday is done, and they're not getting bombarded by emails at night, that could be a great opportunity for them to sit and scroll and look at houses at night. Okay, so be a little bit particular on when you set those up. Okay, so I'm going to say, hey, I want to send Lucas some listing alerts at 7 a.m. I'm going to put email subject, new homes. Hey, Lucas, check out these houses. Check out these homes. Let me know if you want to go see one of them or need more info. Okay, something along those lines. Okay, and then I would send that to them. Okay. The option here at the bottom allows you to say email to me or email to selected clients. Okay, so if I'm selecting the search for the client, I'm going to take myself off of here. Okay, I don't want to see these ones because I'm going to take, like I said, I'm going to create the exact same search, but I'm going to broaden the search. And so the reason for that is when they get a certain home list, like I said, they're going to see all of a sudden I wake up and I set up a new search. So let's go through this. So now all of a sudden it's going to be listing alert Smith family. I don't have any client selected. Daily alert. So for me personally, I have time blocked 8 to 8:30 to look at homes. Okay. For you guys, it may be different, but this is the awesome part about consistency and making sure you're sending. The most important thing with buyers, and the thing that buyers want the most when they've been surveyed, is they want an agent to help them find houses. Okay. The most valuable thing you can do immediately is to help send them homes. So what are you doing to connect and to send them homes every single day? You cannot just rely on, well, I got them on a listing alert and I'm just waiting for them to send me the home when they're ready. When they find a home that they like, then they'll let me know and we'll go out and see houses. I promise you, you are going to sell less homes by doing that. Okay. If you are actively sending them properties, it also allows you to see if they're not responding back, like something's going on. They let me know that Lucas needs to move in 3 months. And it's been 3 weeks. I've been sending him homes and he hasn't responded one time. We haven't been out one time to see houses. If I don't have him under contract in the next 4 weeks, Lucas is homeless. So like something is going on in life that we need to stop sending homes and say, hey, I notice you're not reaching back out. Has something changed? Where do we go from here? Okay, is something going on that you haven't told me that I should be aware of? Okay, that's your opportunity to really reach out and follow up with them. There's a couple other things I've done. I've sold multiple houses off KSL. Okay. You can go onto KSL. Have you guys ever searched and filtered for sell by owners on KSL? Okay. So that's another area. I'll pull this up really quick and show you. Maybe I'll close this out really quick. So set yourself up a search, decide what time of day you are going to religiously, consistently look at homes. Let's say for me, it's 8 a.m. Okay. So I'm going to select 8 a.m. 6 months. I'm taking the client off there. I'm sending it just to me. And I don't obviously need this sweet little note in the bottom for myself. I changed the email subject to Smith family. Okay. So when I see my emails, I can see I've got Smith family, I've got this family, or I've got, let's say you've got some clients that are looking for homes with 2 kitchens and a basement apartment. Okay. So I would set up a search that says kitchen, 2 kitchens, or basement apartment. If I pull back up, I'll give you a couple of things. So I have helped this community from Afghanistan. So I've got Afghan budget 480, Afghan with basement, multifamily that's built. I've got seller financing, SF, Salt Lake County, Davis County, and Utah County. I've got Tiffany Adams condo, multifamily land, separate entrance up to 850. So strategically, what you put in this email subject line will keep you out of just being like, wait, what client was this for again? So correct. Yeah. So my client doesn't get those. I get those. No, I haven't. But yeah, don't do that. Because I try to nickname stuff too, so I remember the client that I'm working with, or specifically what we're looking after.
Super tall.
Yeah. The crazy lady. So be particular on that. But then the easiest thing to do when I get here in the morning, like I'll pull this up. Let's say I'm like, well, this looks like a pretty decent house. Let me click on this. So I'll pull it up and look at this. When you're not logged into the MLS, you can I'll just copy literally this top subject line over to the URL over to the MLS number. Okay. So I'll copy that and then I'll paste it in our group text and I'll say, hey, I saw this home today and thought of you. This could be a great option. Check it out. Let me know if you want to go see it. Okay. So this is my way to now strategically start following up with the buyer. I'm not waiting for the listing alert to do all the heavy lifting, but I'm also not every single day going into the MLS and recreating a search and spending an hour to sit and click through homes and see what else has been populated in the last 24 hours. You set the search, create the listing alert, and then spend 5 minutes for every client looking at what new homes have hit in the last 24 hours. And so it's a quick way to just go through. And if anything stands out, that's your opportunity to reach back out and connect with them and have a conversation. Okay. From their side, they're like, man, Lucas is like killing it. He keeps sending all these houses to me every day. They're ones that's not even being sent to me. Like Lucas is actively out looking at houses.
So I've been doing this with 2 different people, and like I get where you're coming from, because like sometimes you'll like a couple of days worth of just shoot little text with with the listings and you don't get any response. And so you're like, what's going on? And so I use hey, what's going on? Do you have a quick 15 minutes that we can talk about our next steps?
Yep.
You know, and that I think that re-emphasized him to be like, oh, I have kind of been ignoring his texts. And because he is interested still. And
Yep.
so it kind of re-engages them too at the same time. And
Yeah, it's a good question. So where do we go from here?
Yeah.
You know, what's going on? You know, what's most helpful? So that's a KSL is another thing that I look at. Like I told you guys, let me pull this back up here so I can show you. While I'm pulling this up, any other questions that you guys have with this so far? Any ahas? Anything that stands out? Anything you guys have learned so far? Kylie.
Okay, so to clarify, when somebody goes silent on you after they have already told you, they'd like to move now if possible, then they go silent. It's better to reach out and say, hey, what's going on? Just update me rather than say, hey, I've reached out X amount of times. I haven't heard from you. So at this point, falls in your court. Let me know. Instead of doing that.
Yeah, I mean, you can't, depending on the person. I think it's the level of how good of rapport do you have with them? How another great question to ask is in a buyer consult or a listing consultation, scale of 1 to 10 throughout this process, how honest can I be with you? Okay. How honest can I be through this process?
You said, had people respond with a lower number, don't be honest.
No, everyone's absolutely brutally honest, the 10. So it's okay, if I can be honest with you throughout this process, just know that I'll always be honest and upfront with you. Okay. So that's a good way to tie it back. Hey, in the beginning, when we first met, you said that I could be very honest with you. I'm concerned that we needed to be into a new home by this time, and things are getting a little tight. Where do we go from here? Okay. So if it's the right client, I'll just call them up and say, hey, how are you? I've sent you a few things. Did you look at those? Did you get a chance to check them out? What's going on? Because I haven't heard from you in a little bit. Okay. How do I best help you? Where do we go from here to keep things moving? Who else had something? Did you have something, Lucas?
Yeah, I like how, so you have two different listing lawyers, one that sends that to them, and then one that you're looking on your side of it. I never thought of doing that. Then it feels more value to them as well, like you were saying.
Yep. Well, there's things too, when you make your search a little bit bigger and you find a home that checks all the boxes, but it's slightly more than what they talked about, it gives you the chance before I'm going to send that home. I'm going to look, how long has it been on the market? I may call the lender. If I really know what they're looking for, that's where you've got to be really good when you're showing houses, walking through, what do you like? What don't you like? Take notes, writing those down, and don't just keep sending the same homes. Start to make sure you're critiquing the listing alerts and what you're sending them, particular to how your conversations are going. If you ask the right questions, you should start to get a good feel man, this living room is just too small. We like to have people over. Okay. So when you're looking at homes, you can't just start auto sending stuff and texting it. You're going to have to start looking at the photos and man, is this in relation to the last home that we saw on Saturday? Is the living room big enough? Is that their most important thing, is the living room? They like having parties. They like having people over. So they're okay with a smaller master. They're okay with smaller bedrooms, but their most important thing is the family room. So I have to really dive in and start looking at it, because then they can really see you're listening to me. You actually care about what I want in a house. Okay. But it allows you to do a little bit digging outside of then sending it. Because if, let's say, it's a little bit more than their pre-approval, I'd send it and I'd also say, hey, I've already called the lender. If I was able to negotiate $5,000 in concessions, we could actually qualify for this home. Do you want to set up a time to go see it? Okay. So when you're sending stuff they're not normally seeing, it's valuable, because it shows that you're doing way more work than they think you really are. Because really, if you streamline the process, you set the listing alert, you look at it for 5 minutes, you're actually not spending that much time every day looking at it. Okay. On KSL, so you can go to homes, okay, up at the top, Come in here, you can put in city or you can just hit search. And so on here, a lot of us will throw homes on KSL. Okay, so this is stuff that's on the MLS and it's for sell by owner. But if you go over here to all filters and you go over to, oh, it's on build. So you got to go to buy. Make sure it's on buy and not build. So if you go over to all filters, you can come over here to listing details for seller type and you can click by owner. Okay, so this will take you to all the for sale by owners that have posted on KSL. So it reduces it down. So now all of a sudden I can go price point. Let's say we're looking to Lucas's point. Let's say it's 300 to, let's say it's 475, 500. And you can toggle the map and you can see there's not a ton of homes, okay? But there's a handful of homes on here. So these are great options that are not on the MLS, could fit your client. It's just one more area to look at occasionally. I don't pull it up every single day because there's just not a ton of options that get put on here. But probably once a week or twice a week, I'll pull this up and just quickly look. Is there any new for sale by owner homes on here that could fit one of my clients? Okay. And that's a whole nother area that you could search occasionally to see if there's an option that may fit what you're looking for.
People do that. Huh?
Yep. There's still a few people that do it.
Do you ever use this like separate from with the buyer in mind, or do you ever use it to kind of approach them and be like, hey, if it doesn't work out, I'm happy to help you represent?
On this, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. You could lead gen, but honestly, if I was to pick up the phone right now and call one of these people and I said, hey, this is Cody Thorup with Red Sign Real Estate Team, they'd be like, oh, there's an immediate wall goes up because,
You probably have-
oh, there's a million agents that have called these people. So normally when I call them, I'll say, hey, this is Cody Thorup with Red Sign Real Estate Team, or hey, this is Cody with Keller Williams. I'm not trying to sell your house. I'll tell them that right off the bat. I'm not trying to sell your house. I actually have a buyer that potentially is interested in your home. And so I wanted to call and ask you a couple of questions. Can you tell me about your kitchen? Can you tell me, I noticed that you said it's been updated. Can you give me some more information on that? Okay, one of the questions I'll ask them too, if my buyer really does love this, are you paying a buyer compensation? Are you paying a buyer's agent? Okay, some of them will come out and say it. It's like, let's click on this Harriman home. Some of them will say, hey, we're willing to pay a buyer agent. This one doesn't have any info on it. So it doesn't say they're willing to pay it. I'll ask them, are you willing to pay? If my buyer likes this, I can bring you a great buyer that's qualified. They've got a good down payment. Are you open to paying my buyer's agent compensation? Okay, and I'll have a conversation. Some have, some aren't. I sold a home that they were like, nope, I'm not willing to pay it. But the price, I was able to just stick my commission on top. I'd already told my client that. And so when we went to negotiate it, I put it in the offer. I included like 14,000 above where they were asking. Home appraised. It was part of the loan. My buyer was stoked because we got a house. It was like the tail end of COVID craziness. They threw it on KSL. We went and looked at it the first day. It was an older couple and they had it priced less than what it should have been during that market. And so we were able to put it under contract for what they wanted. I put my commission on top and my clients they were stoked. So it worked out.
How does that work? Like adding your commission on top of the price? If the for sale by owner isn't willing to pay the commission, how would you get the commission then?
Yeah, there's a couple ways to structure it. So you'd put it on top. You can put it in an addendum that just says seller agrees to pay buyer broker compensation of X%. There's escrow instructions that you can have the seller sign that says they're willing to pay this much out of their closing amount. There's a couple ways that you can structure it. There also is a buyer compensation addendum that's not used very often that can be included as well. So there's a couple ways, but I would let the seller know when I present it. I would call them and say, hey, here's my offer. I'd like to review it with you. We can pull it up. I'll go through it and say, look, my offer is here. I'm also including my compensation. I've added that onto our price. So you were asking $450. I put our offer at $465, so you just walk them through it and present it accordingly. Okay. So it's just, I think, like I said, with buyers, the biggest thing is what are you doing to find them homes? The faster you find them the home, the faster you're going to get them under contract. Okay. If you just put them on listing alerts, hope that the system's going to hopefully send them a home, and that's your saving grace to getting a paycheck and getting them under contract. It's a slow way to do business. Okay. If you want to churn through and get a buyer and try to immediately get them under contract, it's like, what do I have to do to find them the home? Because if you find them the home and they're motivated enough, then they should make an offer. They should be willing to put an offer in. Okay. And then back to this LTP mama. This is also great because if you can hit this in the very beginning, you know, hey, Lucas, you mentioned timeline was supposed to be 2 months, but I noticed you're not getting back to me. Has the timeline changed? Okay, so that's why it's great to pre-qualify with LTP mama, because it allows you to pull it back to them and say, hey, you in the beginning told me that location was this, but now you're sending me home. You told me it was Pleasant Grove to Provo, but all of a sudden you're starting to send me homes in West Jordan. What's changed? Well, I got a new job and it's in Sandy, so I want to be in West Jordan now. Oh, I didn't even know that. I need to go change my search, because they're looking at houses that aren't even on my search because I wasn't aware that something's changed. Okay. I can go 15 more minutes with you guys. I've got to stop at 11. Any other questions with buyers? Any other thing that you guys want to cover?
So I was wondering if you could just repeat that kind of script that you have or say to the for sale by owner on Excel. So you're like, hey, I'm so-and-so, I'm not trying to sell your home.
Yep.
But I'm interested in a potential buyer.
Yep.
And then what do you say after that?
So I'll call them and say, hey, this is Cody Thorup with Keller Williams. And immediately a wall goes up. You can almost like feel the tension on the phone jumping at you, honestly, because they're so angry that they put their home on KSL. They've had a million calls. And so I'll immediately say, I'm not looking to sell your home. I have a buyer. Okay. And then all of a sudden, like, it's like the wall comes crumbling down and they're like, okay, I'm all ears now. You have somebody that's going to give me what I want potentially. And so from there, then I'll just start asking some questions about, a lot of these are very brief, you know, it's like fresh, bright, updated townhome. This one actually has 36 photos, but some of these have like 5 cell phone photos that look like it was taken with a razor phone, flip phone, you know? So sometimes it's really hard to like, tell me about the home. How long have you lived there? You know, why are you guys looking to move? Because again, there's no agent involved in this. So you can really just be a person with them. Just again, kind of run through some of this LTP mama with them. Where are you guys looking to move? You know, what timeline would you guys ideally like to be out of this house? You know, I'm trying to find out a little bit of info to really see, is it a good fit? Well, to Kylie's point, I'm also digging in to see, can I go get my foot in the door? You know, this is probably the one more unique way. If you were to call for sell by owners and say, look, I'm not trying to sell your house. I actually have a buyer. You may quote unquote have one. You may not have one. Hey, can I set up a time to come by and walk the home and see if it's a good fit for my buyer? If you were to go get in front of them, I don't have the intention to sell your house right now, but as I'm walking through the home, I'm building rapport. I'm face to face now with them. I can start asking good questions. Okay. Hey, you mentioned you're wanting to make a move to live closer to family. You know, where is that? You know, is it grandkids? Is it aunt, uncle, mom, dad? Like, get to know them a little bit. You know, what have you guys loved about this area? What are you going to miss about living in this home? Okay. If you guys could change anything about your house, what would it be? Okay. So I start to get to know them a little bit. A great question to ask them is, hey, if you guys decided to put this home on the market, in the event my buyer doesn't want this and you guys decided to put the home on the market, do you have a real estate agent that you guys would call? And if they're like, well, not really. We've got maybe this one person, but I would love to interview for the job. Okay. And so I'll take this info back, you know, I'll share that with my buyer, but if they don't, you know, if it happens to be they don't love the home, I would love to sit down with you and go over my value and what I would do to help you get this home sold. Okay. So it's a different approach to talking to them for sell by owner. Okay. You could lead generate for sell by owners, but I would not call and say, hey, I'm so-and-so from Keller Williams and I want to call to sell your house. So a lot of those will say, we don't need a listing agent. Don't call us.
Don't call.
Yeah, realtors don't call. Like, you've got to
No
approach it.
agents, please.
Yeah, you've got to approach it a little bit different.
Still getting calls a year and a half after this.
Yeah. Yep. Let's tackle one of these. What's most important for you guys? Social media follow-up or listing appointments?
I think listing appointments is too broad for.
Social media.
Okay. Anything else you guys want to try to cover? What you got me?
I have a listing that had the MLS exclusion because they weren't ready, but I wanted to sign it.
Okay.
Just make sure it's done. So they're on the exclusion now, but I called them yesterday and they want to go live April 15th. So when do you think, is there a timeline for rules that I need to take it off MLS exclusion or just when it's ready to go live, just start live?
Yeah, you're just meaning, so you got an ERS signed with an MLS exclusion so you can get the listing alert, the listing agreement signed. Got it. One of the other things too, I think it's not leveraged enough. This is probably another thing if you get a listing. I put 6 listings under contract 3 weeks ago. Got 6 ERSs signed. Part of that, most of those are on, I took the listing with the intention to go active no-show, because active no-show allows me to take the listing. You don't have to have photos potentially, but I can start lead generating with other agents because it's not broadcast. So that's one thing you can use, you guys can use too.
Does that start days on market or?
Nope. So it's a kind of an easy way to say, hey, look, one of the marketing strategies I have is to get the listing agreement signed. I know we've talked about scheduling photos here in a month after we do a few repairs, but I love to get it up on active no-show because it starts to have some conversations with some other agents potentially and starts to let me lead generate. And then once we're ready, we'll get photos taken and then we'll hit active and then we'll start to have showings of them.
And on your MLS search, instead of active, you just click active no show, and that's where it shows up.
Yeah.
So
So I would click those two when you're selecting homes and listing alerts. I would include active no-shows on your search. Clients can't see it, but you can. So that's a way to like, oh man, there's this home that's active no-show. I've called a couple agents and said, hey, what's the story? When's the seller going to be ready? What are you guys doing?
it's on there. Right
Yep.
now, probably no one can see it. It's just MLS exclusion.
Correct. Yeah, but if it's not active, then it's not searchable. So, but if you have an ERS signed, you haven't hit active yet, and it's scheduled for the 15th, but they want to go active sooner. I don't think there's any issues with that. You may have to maybe ask Dean. Maybe he'd want you to put an addendum together to slide up the date. So if the date gets pushed back, you should extend it, but I don't think there's any issues with just with getting it on there sooner than what you have signed. So don't quote me on that though. Make sure you ask Dean. That's his job.
So, I have a client I've been working with for a few weeks now, but I can't sign an exclusive right to sell with them yet because, so they have a lot of acres on their house, but we're subdividing it to 2 different parcel numbers.
Okay.
So I can't, and we're planning to sell the land side first, but I can't sign the exclusive right to sell yet because we don't have that parcel number yet. Is there a way I can sign it yet, like before we get that new
Ooh.
parcel number? Or do I have to wait until the new one comes in?
Yeah, it's a good question. I would ask Dean, do you have full approval from the city that they're going to do it?
Yeah.
Okay, so you already have full approval. Yeah, I'd maybe ask Dean and see what his thoughts were, because there's probably, I wonder if there's potential for you just to use the current tax ID number and then switch it over after, would be maybe one of the thoughts, to get it up now so you can start marketing the land if you have approval from the city, because you could take a picture of the plat map and put that as part of one of the photos with the picture of the land.
Yeah.
I would ask or double check with Dean if you could use the existing tax ID number and then just switch the tax ID number once you guys actually have it, and see if that's a way to get around it. See what his thoughts are with it. So, good question. What else you guys got? Anything else specific? Okay, you guys want to chat through social media follow-up really quick? So biggest thing with, I think, any lead generating stuff you guys do is you got to try to get a phone number and an email. Okay. The best way for you to leverage and grow your database. A lot of times when I meet with an agent to talk about potentially joining Red Sign or just how their business is going, we'll talk about what's your database look like? Where do you house it? Where is it held? Is it an Excel sheet? Is it in Command? Is it, a different brokerage CRM? Where do you have that? And then what's the overall health of the database? Okay, and what I mean by that is a healthy database, 100% database is name, okay, phone number, email, and address. Those 4 things give you 100% complete database for that lead. Okay, so if you guys were to look right now, how healthy is your guys' database? How many leads do you have all 4 of those things? Okay, there's a lot of tools within the real estate industry that allow you to leverage different things if you have complete data. Okay. So social media is difficult because you post stuff to Kylie's point, they reach out and say, hey, I'm interested. The biggest thing is like, what is your script to try to get a name? Well, you have their name, to get their phone number and their email address. Okay. Address is sometimes hard unless it's like you've got an event that you're like, hey, I'm going to send a mailer to you. What's your address? And I can get that to you. Okay. But how do you get their phone number and their email address is all based off your just scripting and what you ask. A lot of times it's if you just come out and just give them the info and then ask for that, it's a little bit more difficult to get that. And so depending on how they reach out, you may respond back and say, hey, I'd love to send you more information. What's your best phone number? I'll text that to you. Hey, what's your best email address? And I'll send you an email with all of the information. Hey, that home is actually went under contract, but what's your best email? And I'll send you a couple other options that are that price point and in that location. Okay, so you're trying to dig in and try to get and pull some of the info out.
There's your response, there's your email. Yeah.
So, because it's easy to say, hey, I'll send you a DM, I'll send you the information, but it's like, hey, what's your best email? What's your best phone number? And I'll text it over to you. So I would always rather have a phone number than I would an email. So if I'm going to pick and choose between the two, I'm going to try to get an email before I get a phone number before I get an email. Okay. But you have to be strategic about it. That's the thing with social media that sometimes is hard, is that people will raise their hand, they'll comment, they'll say that's an awesome house, but how do you get the conversation moving along, but then also still get some info? And the other thing too is, what value do you have? Okay. People won't turn value away. It's hard. If you're going to get something from somebody, very few people just absolutely say, no, I don't want that. Okay. Somebody calls you up and says, Lucas, I got this awesome event I'm doing this weekend. I want to send you free tickets. Most people aren't going to say, Lucas, I don't want your free tickets. Leave me alone. They'll be like, okay, awesome. What's your best email? I'll send those over to you. So the other thing too, you have to view it as, what is the value that I have to give them by receiving their information? Okay. Hey, I have this cool tool. Hey, I'd love to send you more homes in this area. What's your best email? And I'll set that up for you. Okay. Now I got a listing alert going to them. Okay. So you have to be strategic in getting their information and having something valuable that you can give them. Okay. Does that help with social media stuff? It's always a tough one because some people will get back and then some people just ghost you and they just don't respond. Even strategically great questions or trying to be sneaky with stuff, some people will get back and some people won't. So, okay, anything else? 2 more minutes. Anyone got a last question they want to ask?
I'll just tell you, thank you for your time. I thought it was very good.
Okay, was this helpful?
It was.
Okay, any ahas? Anyone have anything else that stood out?
I think the script is really, really good for buyers. So I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Cody.
Did everyone get one? One? Yeah, it's hard to find a good concrete guy.
Oh, that's awesome.
There you go. I actually don't have anyone that I refer anybody to. I was very particular when it came to concrete. I haven't found 10 years. So you name it, I've done it. I've poured it, finished it, colored, stamped, fancy stuff, commercial stuff. Hey, you're welcome. No, it was residential and commercial. So I felt like there are a couple people I've had or that we use I've referred a couple people and it just wasn't great. So it gives you kind of a bad name. I could probably get you, we've got 2 custom home builders, Valor Homes and Green Tech Construction. I could probably get their flat work guy, or whether you're looking at walls and footings or foundation walls. Okay. Do you want to take my phone number down and then text me your info and I'll ask Eric and Kurt who they use for their footings and foundations?